Philip Jenkins, this is one scholar who has mused on what enabled the Copts to show such remarkable resilience in the face of Islamic persecution, puts some of his thoughts in the little book, The Lost History of Christianity. And there's a chapter called The Mystery of Survival that is part of our reading list here. What really hit me hard in reading Jenkins was the importance of geography. Jenkins makes a big deal of the fact that mountains are friends when it comes to the survival of the church. There's a geography to resilience. This is what happens in Egypt. And if you go to parts of Africa, like Ethiopia, you find that the plains belong to the Muslims, but the mountains belong to the Christians. And this is simply because it's quite hard to dislodge people from high mountains, especially if your main beast of burden is a camel. I've even heard a priest in Lalibela say, it's because the camel cannot climb it like a donkey that we have survived in Ethiopia. I'm not so sure that's true, but the role of geography really does matter. If you go to Burma, for example, you will find that the Christians are the people of the hills. The plains belong to the Buddhists. And in this respect, it's very important to notice the role of the monastery. We talked a little bit about this in the Roman persecution, but we must talk a bit more about it here. I would say that the unsung hero of preserving the faith and making sure it gets transmitted from generation to generation is the monastery, at least in the era from the 3rd to the 12th centuries, after which they became maybe rather rich and inward-looking. And it always links with geography, because where are monasteries built? In high, inaccessible places, with walls and moats and carefully dug springs, so that the sieges of the barbarians can be withstood. And the things that go on in the monastery are specifically designed to preserve the faith. It's where the Bible gets copied. We wouldn't have a Bible today were it not for the toiling of monks in drafty scriptoriums laboriously copying sacred texts on vellum. And often they would preserve an entire language and culture for liturgical purposes. Scott Sunkist, in his book Understanding Christian Mission, makes the very important point that monasteries are the primary institutions that keep mission alive, especially after Christianity becomes more tolerated. And he makes a distinction between those monks who go into the Syrian and Egyptian desert and they perform great aesthetic feats as they try to get next to God, and those who joined monasteries after Basil of Caesarea. He says, monasticism began to be transformed from spiritual renewal and a school of personal holiness with limited missional concern into a missional community designed for holiness and service to the world. And there's another famous scholar called Lamin Sanneh, and he argued that a huge evangelistic advantage of Christianity worldwide was that it did not have an insistence that its scriptures had to remain in a sacred language. So this gave Christianity an option to indigenize that monasteries were in the forefront of. So the practical challenge of this global persecution then is this: can we create an environment where we are encouraged to encounter and serve Christ on a daily basis? As it were, turn the whole society into a kind of diluted monastery, rather like Islam has. I was struck by a recent meeting of a Muslim background believer who had come from Somalia, and she had to get out of that country very fast before her family tried to kill her. She made her way to London and she became an asylum seeker, and she went along to a church there and she received a wonderful welcome. But then she said, they said something to me that was so shocking, I literally fell right down in the foyer. And this is what they said: "See you next Sunday." And she said, "See you next Sunday?" She said, "Where's the Ummah?" That's the word they have for fellowship in Islam. "Where's the intensity?" She said, "I'm a Muslim background believer. I don't get through to next Sunday without the help of other believers. How do these Christians get by with a once-a-week fellowship experience? Or if they're extra keen, maybe twice a week." And she says, "Does Christianity not have an Ummah too?" And I think she's saying that we must create a society or some kind of sub-society that encourages us, pressures us even, to remember Christ and serve Him on a daily basis. And this may be one of the most vital reasons why the MBB churches are having to form their own fellowships and are beginning to constitute a new strand of Christianity in the future. So learn the lessons again from this second global great persecution, the Islamic persecution.